Hello and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. Today, Tony Harcourt, who is the co-founder of WorkGuru, joins us to showcase this solution. So let me tell you a little bit about WorkGuru. WorkGuru helps you get on top of all of your job and project management needs, from timesheets and stock controls to quoting, invoices and CRM. WorkGuru has you covered. It's a project and stock management system for SMBs with a wide array of features from job costing, timesheets, stock sales, and asset servicing to CRM and quoting. So it's very much, I think you refer to it as a light ERP solution.
Very much lightweight ERP, yes.
So looking forward to, I've seen you in the forums jumping in and responding to a lot of people who have issues. WorkGuru does seem to be the solution for a lot of problems at the moment. So looking forward to the presentation. So
Thanks,
I will hand over to you as we've still got people. So just do a slow start, okay?
Okay.
Make sure people get in.
I'll do a very slow start. So thanks for having me, Heather. As mentioned, I'm Tony. I'm one of the co-founders of WorkGuru, and we've been building WorkGuru for about 5 years now. And I've been part of the Xero ecosystem since 2014 with the Ripe Group, which is a cloud integration partner of Xero's, has been for a long time. And WorkGuru comes out of all of the things that we use to not be able to find in a single solution for people. And so we've done everything from Dear Inventory to Sin7 to Workflow Max to GeoOpt to ServiceMate, Neato, pick. So I've dealt with kind of all of the solutions, and WorkGuru comes out of the things that we kept getting asked for and that we couldn't really solve for our clients. Are you right for me to share my slides, Heather?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Excellent.
We've got people waving in from Hamilton in New Zealand, from Canberra, from the Caribbean. So we've got an international audience for you today, Tony.
Excellent. Beautiful. All right. So as Heather's mentioned, WorkGuru has a lot of features, and we aim to be that sort of lightweight ERP system for our history. Knowing how well there are great inventory management systems, there are great timesheet systems, there's great stock control, there's great quoting, there's great CRM. But and as much as we're a cloud integrator historically, it gets really hard when you have to have 8, 9, 10, 11 apps joined together in a workflow. So WorkGuru really came out of trying to give everybody in the Xero ecosystem a one-stop shop, for want of a better word, for their complex project management and stock control needs. So that's the basis for our existence, and that's where we came from. So what do we do? So we solve problems for project management, including your forecast versus actual margins, quoted versus what you actually bill the client. Timesheets for your staff, whether you want to put those in through a kiosk in the workshop, on mobile through the web app. Stock control, including what you've purchased to have on the shelves and direct purchases for projects themselves. Quoting, invoicing, and CRM, and trying to keep all of that in one place. So the sort of questions that we would get asked for those of you who are very familiar with the Xero ecosystem, this came out of things like, I need to have Workflow Max and Unleashed stitched together. So that's the kind of the genesis of where WorkGuru came from initially. And so we've tried to add a few extra things in from both of those systems and 4 or 5 other systems that we thought did some things really well. And we've gone and built WorkGuru to try and be the best of those. All right, so who does it work well for? First thing, it was mainly built for manufacturers and fabricators. So, and we say this: boats, trailers, caravans, campers, people who build big things. So anything that you want, where time is a component of what you build, WorkGuru is a really good manufacturing platform. So if you're tracking time and cost and even the finished item, so if you're caravan and camper, you might have a service history, you've got time and materials that went into it, you might want to track the serial number of the chassis, all of those kind of things. That is, WorkGuru is excellent for that. We also have architects and engineers, particularly where you've got things like complex projects, where you've got a header project and then a whole bunch of sub-projects underneath it, and they're using our project groups functionality for that. Obviously, they're not using the stock control elements of WorkGuru, and that's probably a key thing to point out, is that I don't think a single one of our clients uses every feature, so you don't have to use everything in WorkGuru to get the benefit out of it. And the last industry that we do a fair bit of work in at the moment is construction. And again, it's for those larger projects where you're running time and materials and purchases and possibly subcontractors on those jobs as well. So who we don't work well for is similar, but different. So where you're doing manufacturing, like food manufacturing or beverage manufacturing. So if you're making beer, unfortunately, I can't go and visit your brewery and claim it as a tax deduction. We're definitely not a great fit for the food and beer market where you're building batches of things. So if it's cereals, if it's muesli bars, if it's food and drinks, we're not the right fit for that. We're also not a competitor with any of the high volume field work kind of applications. So your service mates, your geo-ops and things like that, where you've got plumbers, electricians, tradies going around and doing 4, 5, 6, 7 jobs a day. That's not what WorkGuru is designed, not what we're designed for. We don't have that GPS tracking capability, and we don't have the scheduling inside the day capability. So you can't do scheduling from 7:30 to 8:30 in WorkGuru. So we're not a good fit for that. And the last one, wholesalers and retailers, needs to be said because we get asked a little bit because we do the stock control side of things. There are fantastic apps for that, but fast-moving consumer goods or straight B2B wholesale and retail is definitely not something that we're a good fit for. Our typical app stack is WorkGuru and Xero. We do have some other integrations that we work with, but as we said, we try to be a lightweight ERP for the Xero ecosystem. And so there's minimal kind of things that we want you to have to try and plug in around the outside. We do have some other integrations for payments. So we've got a pinch payments integration, a Tanda integration, and an Easy Bills integration. So run through those briefly, but our main app stack is just WorkGuru and Xero. So as mentioned, our main app stack is with Xero, and we integrate a fair few things. So our invoices go across, as do our purchases, timesheets, cost of goods sold, and payments. So we've got a relatively extensive integration with Xero. That's our longest and strongest integration. Funnily enough, that's been our background. I mean, I've been a Xero partner for 7 years. Michael, who's my co-founder, has been a Xero partner since 2009, so a little while. And that's our strongest integration. QuickBooks, we have a simpler integration, just doing invoices, purchases, and COGS. That's just a limitation of the QuickBooks API, and we don't have nearly as much demand for QuickBooks as possible as Xero does. And MyOb is coming in September, so we've got a beta program for our MyOb integration at the moment, and that's coming out hopefully in the next 2 weeks. The bottom ones that we've already talked about briefly are Tanda, Easy Bills, and Pinch, and we've picked those because they're all great Australian solutions that solve a really good need in the market. So our Tanda integration is a really interesting one, particularly for manufacturing. So if you do your timesheets and your stock control and your quoting in WorkGuru for your job, but you want award interpreted costings, you can actually send the timesheets to Tanda, do all of the award interpretation using their fantastic engine, and then we just pull the cost back on that timesheet into WorkGuru. So they get all the benefits of their award calculations, but you can then show the true margin on your jobs in WorkGuru. Easy Bills, we've just written an integration for them about 2 months ago, which lets you take photos of your receipts and upload them into projects into WorkGuru. So you don't just have your overhead receipts going into Xero. You've got your project-based receipts showing you onto your jobs in WorkGuru as well. So you've got proper project P&L, including those receipts if you don't want to raise a purchase order for every time you visit Bunnings and the like. And the last one is Pinch. And so we've just released a Pinch payments. And so you can link your Pinch payments portal to our WorkGuru invoices and prompt your clients to pay and go through all of those standard wonderful Pinch payments processing to get money into your bank account faster. So the setup process, I must admit, I had a look at the Minute Doc setup process this morning and a few others that have presented on other stuff. Ours takes a little bit more time. Unfortunately, it's not a short one. Because we cover so much of the operational day-to-day, we've broken it down into quite a few different things, as you can see, from customers, suppliers, contacts, project templates, all of those kind of things, right through to your Xero integration, your documents. You're going to need a fair bit of time to set that up. So unfortunately, it's not a click and connect and be up and running kind of thing. So we definitely recommend a setup process and a setup partner for WorkGuru. We have had some clients on board themselves incredibly successfully, but it's definitely not our recommended process. A couple of our key points of difference, and this again comes out of our history with the Xero ecosystem, is stuff that you can't do in other programs particularly well. Now, recurring projects is a simple one. I know we can do that in a bunch of different places, but the top one there is project groups. And project groups is just an arbitrary way for you to collect projects and group them together. So whether that's variations on a construction job, or if you're servicing a fleet full of vehicles, or if you're doing phases of an engineering project, and you want to see not only how you went on each individual job, but report on the job potentially as a whole, or even invoice it as a whole. So we've got a cleaning company in South Australia. We didn't build it for this, but it works brilliantly. They have something like 350 recurring jobs that they use every month, that they then want, the clients need one bill for each of those, but they need to know how they went on each project. So they roll that up into a project group, and then each month they raise one invoice per client off that, and they can put 150, 200 of those jobs on a single invoice. So it massively reduces their overheads in terms of having to go through and invoice each of those. And then they can also see how they've gone on that particular contract over the period of the year. Assets for us are not accounting assets. So they're not, we're not talking depreciation schedule or things like that. We're talking about physical equipment that you're either going to have a service history of, or you want to track jobs against. So where we're talking about some of those big things, manufacturing before, we're talking about caravans, campers. You might have a project to build the caravan and camper, and then you might have a service of it, and you want to track every timesheet and everything that's ever gone into it, even if that asset changes hands. So that's one of the really key things that we got asked for a bunch of times. If we sold it and the project belonged to a client, we couldn't change the history of that job without changing the client that it was for. So we basically looked as an asset as a way of grouping related work together for a thing, not for a person or for a company. Stock sales are a pure way of just dealing with inventory. So if you come in and somebody wants to buy a replacement part off the shelf, or if you just want to sell it to a distributor of yours, whatever, a stock sale is the simplest way to just get stock out the door. It's basically a mini project that all it does is decrement the stock on hand. We very unexpectedly actually have somebody running an entire retail shop that's an attachment to their manufacturing facility. Based on that, they run all of their hydraulic sales out of WorkGuru using pure stock sales and an FPOS machine, which works really nicely, but again, not very expected. Custom fields. So our custom fields can go on pretty much everything in WorkGuru except for products. So you've got quotes, assets, invoices, clients, suppliers, custom fields, and they can be anything from short text, long text, numbers, date, and you can make them mandatory or not. So you can really customize the set of data that you want to collect about each one of those entities in your WorkGuru account, and you have access to them in your reporting and on your document template. So for example, if I have a client custom field that I've quoted and then I've done a job for, I can have access to my client custom fields or my asset custom fields on my quote, on my project documents, and on my invoice as well. So it makes it really easy to build complex documents with a really simple click. And the last one that we've just done is forms. And we use forms for everything from getting sign-off on site. So you've got a timesheet approval process. So if you're doing contract work on site for somebody, you could get sign-off. We've got a heavy truck workshop that uses them for when people drop off a truck to say, yes, I consent to the work being done on my truck and I agree to pay all charges. Or you can do it for your JSA Take 5 and all your safety analysis to make sure that you're working safely on site, and put a time-stamped history of that document onto your job in WorkGuru. I'll just quickly run through a little bit of a WorkGuru demonstration, and we're not going to spend huge amounts of time trying to do the whole thing, but I will just run through some of the things that sort of stand us apart, or they're possibly a little bit different, because I'm trying to stick very much to time. Heather, can you see my WorkGuru screen? Excellent. Cool. So this is our project overview screen. So this is the basis of where everything runs in WorkGuru. And the key things to look at are sort of the left-hand side. So this is our project profit widgets, we call them. So everything there is actuals versus forecast. So on this example, I've just done over 6 hours against the 2 that was forecast. I haven't completed my tasks yet. I've invoiced 3 times what I'd expected to, but it's also cost me 578% of what I was expecting to. So that's a really quick snapshot of how you're doing on that project. I can see you pulling a face there, Nicole. I'd be pulling a face too if I was running 5.5 times over budget, but good thing this is just a demo project. So very familiar format to anyone who's dealt with some of the project management tools in the Xero ecosystem. We've got our task rate and then our usage of time on those. And then as you drill across the tabs, it goes down to the audit log and the details of what we've used. So you've got the time history of who's done what time on that job, what materials we've used. So again, so forecast versus actuals, what we've got on hand, what we've forecast we were going to use, what we've used from stock, plus what we've bought in, and then the total of the materials we've used. Any purchases on that job, notes and files that you can either manually attach and upload, or you can email them to your email address for WorkGuru, and that will auto attach to the job. Invoicing history of the job and the credit notes. So very detailed overview of what you can find, but relatively straightforward. It's just a different project. Probably again, one of the things we wanted to talk about was project groups. So this is your way of grouping arbitrary projects together. So if we do roll-ups of multiple projects into a project group, we can see the results of all of those projects, including our current and completed ones that have gone under budget or over budget. And we can still drill into each of those projects and get a report on the individual ones as well. So very, very useful if you're doing groups of related work. The invoicing on that's really interesting because we can let you do a sort of a percentage claim on every project, just invoice the completed tasks or do the actuals, so your work in progress that you haven't invoiced for yet. And as we mentioned at the start, so it's 1 per client or 1 per project. So if you've got 100 projects in a project group, you can generate 100 invoices or just 1 if it's all for 1 client. And probably the last thing that we'll have a look at through the demo side of things is the asset details. So this is where we were talking about bringing together the service history of a particular asset. So we've got a car here, a VW Golf called 007 Uma, used to work for, right? And it's a collection of everything we've ever done on this asset. So you can see we've done the car build, 20,000 K service, and then the monthly service and quick services on top of that. So you can see if there's any recurring projects allocated to that asset. So we might have a monthly or quarterly service, the timesheet. So who's done the work on each of those jobs. So if the car blows up, we know who to go back to talk to. What parts we've used. Again, any notes and files, outstanding work that we've done. So that's quotes on that asset that we haven't won. And then what we've charged the client for on each of those jobs. So it's kind of the asset overview of linking that stuff together. And if we change the owner of that asset, we don't lose any of that history. The bills just go to a new client and we just associate it with a different entity. So that's kind of the main things that I wanted to run through, Heather, because I think they're different to things that other people might have seen before. So that's probably where I'll leave it there, and more than happy to do one-on-one demonstrations with anyone who wants them.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Tony. Really appreciate that presentation. We did have during that session, we did have a question from Victoria, which was, does that mean you use Easy Bills to put the invoices both into Xero and into the jobs line items for stock codes?
Not line items for stock codes as yet, because that can get a little bit tricky. And it has to do with the way that we treat project purchases versus stock purchases. So a project purchase for us skips the balance sheet and goes straight to the expense because we assume if it's on a project, it's in a profit-making enterprise. Whereas if we're buying for stock, then it goes to the balance sheet. So a little bit tricky for us to do that, particularly for the stock ones at the moment. We are working with the team from Easy Bills to make that happen over the next couple of months.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, if anyone has any questions, feel free just to take your join us and take your microphone off, or put your microphone on and ask the question, or pop it into the chat area and I will bring it to Tony. I'm interested in confirming, we have discussed this elsewhere, but your solution for the sunsetting of TradeGecko, this is not a natural solution that people would move to from TradeGecko?
No, the TradeGecko side of things, you're definitely more in the Sin7 Deer or Unleashed side of things. That's much more that retail wholesale side of things, which we're not a great fit for. Although we have had a few people come through specifically because we do stock control. It's one of the reasons that we say that we're not a great fit for that specifically.
Thank you for that. What sort of solutions do you see people coming from to WorkGuru? Because how long has WorkGuru been out there publicly?
Publicly, we launched at the last XeroCon. So I've got to tell you, I'm hanging for another XeroCon. 2019. Yeah,
Okay,
September
okay.
2019. But we'd run a closed beta for about 10 or 12 months before that.
Okay.
So we see a really eclectic mix of what people are coming from. So obviously spreadsheets is one. We've had one person that wasn't even using spreadsheets. They were using a whiteboard come through to us. But then we see people coming from things like Workflow Max, if they've got Workflow Max, but then they need the inventory a lot. But we also are seeing quite a few come down from things like Sage or SAP B1. We're actually moving 4 or 5 clients off SAP Business One at the moment and onto WorkGuru. Trying to get down to that Xero stuff. But anyone who put SAP B1 into a 12-person organization hurts my feelings anyway, because I think that's taking advantage of people. But it's a really eclectic mix. It's not necessarily a particular software that people come from. It's generally speaking more the business problem that they're trying to solve, which is that stock control, timesheets, and project profitability all together.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and I agree with you. Sometimes it helps us to, if we hear the solutions, then it makes sense, the flow, and goodness, the people moving from those larger ERP solutions must have been quite happy to come down to a sort of a more effective, low cost solution.
Absolutely.
So Jen Carter has asked, how does WorkGuru work in terms of progress claims for construction and variations, etc.? Are these treated as jobs within a project, and you use the percentage to claim a portion of a task?
Great question. It depends on what you want to do. So you can claim percentages of line items on each project. So for example, if you've got a 5-phase build, you could go 10% of phase 1, 20% of phase 2, 30% of phase 3, and show a progress claim to say what we've claimed on this phase versus what's remaining and what's the percentage complete. So you can do that on the project level. If you're doing it overall on the project group level, so if you're wanting to break it up as for example, if you're breaking a house up into a building, you're going kitchen, bathroom, veranda, then you could even do it on what you've completed. So you could take a deposit invoice and then just go, complete phase 1 of kitchen, phase 2 of bathroom, and phase 3 of veranda. We can invoice all of those at the same time. So it really comes down to how you set those projects up, but it's incredibly flexible in how you can claim, Jen.
Awesome. Thank you for that. We've had another question. Curious how far you can push on cost tracking with the assets. Are you able to supply an example of how this could look?
Sure. Look, again, that comes down to setup. So for us, an asset is just a thing. So it can be something like you can treat it as an internal asset. So we've got people that are using everything from diggers internally, so a big cat digger or a dozer, where they actually want to track their own service history and then the utilization of that on other people's jobs. And then we've also got people just tracking their work utes and tracking the service history of their utes. Again, we've even got people that have put employees, particular key employees, in as assets and recorded against them any certifications or things that they have done. So you can run reports on employee certifications that are expiring. Kind of pushes us that we're releasing employee certifications over the next little while. But they're incredibly flexible, Jace, so you can kind of do whatever you want with them, as long as you set it up that way.
That was your cue to say, and humans are your greatest asset.
Obviously, you know that, Heather.
Obviously, yeah.
Yes, the software as a service requires service. That's my other thing that I love.
Jen would also like to know, with regards to construction, can you submit a claim rather than an invoice?
So when you're saying a claim, I'm assuming that you mean a pro forma, kind of this is what I'm going to claim off a job. So I'm assuming that's what you mean. A lot of that comes down to terminology and format. So as far as WorkGuru is concerned, it would be an invoice. Even if it was a draft invoice to generate your pro forma, you would just generate a document template to make it look like a claim as far as the client was concerned. So you could agree on the amounts and things like that, specifically, so you could do an appropriate amount or amendments without having to credit and void those invoices. But yes, you could do that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. In terms of, you mentioned there was a number of different, I'm not sure whether you use the term modules, but a number of different components, etc. Mm-hmm. Do you pay for the pricing? Is it the whole thing, or do you pay by what module you're using?
No, pay for the whole thing and you choose whether to use it or
Fair
not.
enough.
So our pricing is very straight up. So if you're just a timesheet user, it's only the $30 extra a month off the base price, whereas an admin user who has access to everything is $70 a month. But we're trying to avoid that, and then you pay extra for this and then you pay extra for that. So we're trying to stay away from that kind of pricing and just keep it very simple and transparent with people.
Simple. People will like that. Okay, so we're going back into this question, and you're welcome, Jen, to jump on and ask your question if you'd like. But we submit claims and then the receiving entity creates a buyer-created tax invoice. Now, I think Jen's in New Zealand. I may be wrong, but I think she is.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you? Does that?
Yeah, it does. So you would what I'm thinking would happen then, and Jen, I'm very happy to have a chat with this individual about the process. So what I'm thinking you would do is you'd create a progress claim in WorkGuru and leave that as a draft invoice. And then when you get the buyer created tax invoice, or in Australia, recipient created tax invoice, you would match that by placing their invoice number, the RCTI number, in as the WorkGuru invoice number. So you can match your claim with their RCTI or BCTI, so that then goes through and marries up in Xero, and then your bank rec's nice and easy as well.
Awesome. Okay, that's good. So I know a number of bookkeepers who who've been very happy with WorkGuru. Are the bookkeepers and accounting community, are they joining you your partner program?
Yeah, absolutely. And so our partner program is very straightforward. The big thing for us is that we try and provide as much support for the bookkeepers and accountants as possible. It's not just about getting referrals off them. So we actually run a session like this kind of every fortnight, which is an open webinar style session where we talk through different topics or different client problems that people are facing, so we can jump on and go, well, here's how we would solve that in WorkGuru. So we're always keen for more partners, but we're getting some good responses from people at the moment.
Yeah, I personally think that it's a really going into this sort of area is a really good area to balance out your business in terms of workflow, in terms of taking on projects like this. When not that it ever is at the moment, when work is easy, when work is flat, then you've sort of can have quite an interesting project to get your teeth into. So Tony, does anyone have any more questions for Tony? Okay, how can people get in contact with you, Tony?
Awesome. So the easiest way is through the website. We've got the 1300 number listed there. I just realized I've stopped sharing my slides.
You can pop them back up again quickly.
I will do that. So the easiest way is going to be through phone. I'm terrible with emails like you, Heather. I get absolutely annihilated on the different chat mediums, LinkedIn, Facebook. So you can general inquiries at info@WorkGuru or the 1300 number, or I'm more than happy to take direct phone calls or questions from the bookkeeping and accounting community on my email, which is just tony@workguru.io, or on my mobile number, which half the world has anyway. So more than happy to take direct contacts from people there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Tony. And thank you to everyone who came along today. Really appreciate you joining us today on the... I'm just kidding. I keep getting questions coming through, but I don't think there's any more questions. So thank you so much, Tony, for joining us here and
Thanks for having us.
showcasing WorkGuru. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.